what was the tipping point? Was the tipping point when he went to the Binance CEO and says, hey, I need you to, why don't we partner up, and okay, I need $1 billion from you. He said, oh yeah, we'll do the deal. And the last one, no, we're not doing the deal, because even if we buy it, it's just not. The interview that he did, which was fascinating, by the way, the CEO of Binance, so very impressed by that guy. He says, no, we're not even touching him. He says, are you concerned that you're losing a company like FTX as a competitor? He says, he's not a competitor. If you know this business, we're not competitors. So what was, if you're saying last year they lost $3 to $4 billion, in a very bullish market, what was the tipping point when all of a sudden, hey, we got to get
the reason he got away with this, he's running a private, unregulated set of companies, right? He had his private holding company, Paperbird. He had Alameda, a private company. He had FTX, a private company. No transparency, no disclosure. If you were running a public company, you got to actually publish audited financials every quarter and make 8K statements, and you have adult supervision. I have lawyers, I have 2 sets of lawyers, 2 sets of accountants. An army of internal accountants, external accountants, etc. And if I just came on your show and said, "Hey, I just wanted to announce that MicroStrategy has 175,000 Bitcoin," my phone would start ringing
by the lawyer.
By the time I put that down, they'd be like, "What are you doing? You're crazy."
Yeah.
And they would say it not just because it's wrong. They would say it because their careers are on the line, and they don't want to spend 10 years in litigation hell. So there's a way that you run a public company, and there's a way you run a regulated company, and on the other hand, Sam was his own regulator. He could make up his own rules. He was accountable to no one. And if you have $10 billion in the bank and then you lose $4 billion and you don't, and the bank doesn't have to disclose what it's done with the money, you just go and give yourself a $4 billion loan secretly. He didn't tell anybody. So they were able, in essence, because they had so much power as private, unregulated. It's not just unregulated. It's one thing to be unregulated. It's unregulated and opaque. If you look at and poorly run, right? There are some offshore businesses, Tether, Binance, that are not regulated, and they're not onshore in the U.S. They're not public, but by common wisdom, they generally are viewed as better run, like adult supervision, because when people ask them to redeem $15 billion, they can do it, right? I think that FTX, Three Arrows, these companies that went bankrupt, Do Kwon and Luna Terra, they were just really poorly run, opaque crypto organizations, and it was destined. Now, what was the pen? I think, look, there was a simmering war going on between the Bitcoin movement and the crypto movement in DC. And the Bitcoin movement is, Satoshi gave us ethical money. Nobody controls it. You have to pay for it by burning energy or by buying it with real cash. And you can't corrupt it. You can't issue more. It's capped at 21 million. Nobody gets to, co-opt it or use it in a usurious fashion to make themselves rich. Okay, that's Bitcoin. The crypto world is, we invented Solana to be better than Bitcoin, and we invented such and such FTT to be cleaner than Bitcoin, and don't mind the fact that we gave 80% of it to ourselves, right? And that we're going to dump the rest on the general public, and we're opaque about it. Now, that war is going on Capitol Hill, where the crypto lobby is lobbying for light or no regulation. Let us basically issue these tokens and make them commodities, and so we don't have any securities laws constraining us. The regulators that understand better, like a guy like the chair of the SEC, would say, look, they're all securities. You can't just let them trade as commodities. That's the same as saying anybody can issue their own equity and lie, cheat, and steal the general public, and that would threaten the entire $100 trillion securities market. But Sam was the number 2 donor to the Democratic Party. He was the number 3 donor to the Republican Party. They've admitted to $200 million to $300 million in donations, but they might have donated hundreds of millions more.
You're saying that he was donating that much to Republican? We're very familiar with how much he's donated to the Democratic Party. He was I believe number two,
He's lobbying.
behind.
He needs both sides.
I tell you, it's diabolical. We know that he was the number 2 donor to the Democratic Party, and
Correct.
until about a month ago, that was the narrative. And then we found out that the chief operating officer that worked for him was the number 3 donor to the Republican Party, and that guy gave $25 million to the Republicans in the last few weeks.
So not he himself,
Gotcha.
because he is fully supportive of what the Democratic beliefs
Gotcha.
are.
Look, I mean, he wanted to be viewed as, remember he said he was going to give $1 billion in the next election cycle?
Yep.
Yeah.
He might have given $1 billion in the last election cycle. We don't know. But he wanted to be viewed as the great progressive savior and financier. So they gave hundreds of millions of dollars to celebrities. They gave hundreds of millions of dollars to academic institutions, hundreds of millions of dollars to politicians, huge amounts of money to journalists, right? Why wouldn't you? Keep in mind, if I can generate $10 billion in air token, in order to make $1 billion a year, all I got to do is take $10 million, lever it up 5 to 1, lean on the liquidity on my own exchange, and the price moves $3 or $4. I get $2 billion more. I made $2 billion in the year in investment income, and then I go and I borrow 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 billion in my margin account. Right? They were counterfeiting money, and then they were using the counterfeit money to steal other money, or either to steal it from their deposit or steal it from their investors or steal it from creditors. Then they were funneling that into the political and the marketing process. And that's why you saw them on the Super Bowl ad. That's why the FTX arena was named after them. That's why every celebrity is getting sued right now.
So with all the craziness taking place, I believe future looks bright. If you believe future looks bright, get your latest Future Looks Bright hat of Valuetainment. It says Future Looks Bright here, Future Looks Bright here. We got them in white, we got them in black, we got them in red. Our black on black sold out. These are about to sell out. If you haven't ordered one yet, we had a person in Michigan, bought one, then he bought 3. Then when those 3 people weren't in the office, they had to order 58 of them because people wanted the Future Looks Bright hat, especially during times like this, because ain't nobody saying Future Looks Bright. To order your Future Looks Bright hat, click over here. And to watch the entire podcast, click here. Take care, everybody.